Hey fan, it's me Aaron.
And I'm Eric.
And we're going to talk about the relaunched DCU. This is the first week it's in full swing. Last week we had the new Justice League, which was an unmitigated success. We sold a ridiculous amount. John Root actually came to the store, the DC VP, executive
awesome.
VP, came in with a Justice League t-shirt of the new Justice League. We talked forever about all this relaunch stuff. He gave me so much inside information. No, I'm just kidding. But we had a great time. And the Justice League, it sold to all the regular fans. That I didn't have any hardcore DC people that didn't want to see it. It sold to a bunch of people that are relapsed comic fans that are coming back to comics, people that I haven't seen for years that are excited to be on like the same playing field that might have lost their job or lost their income or even lost interest in some DC comics
for a while, and
they didn't know how they're so far behind to get back in, and now they're like, oh wow, I can get in now before the storylines get confusing again. And then beyond that, we've had a lot of hardcore Marvel zombies that were actually very interested and very excited to buy their first DC book, which was Justice League #1, which is really weird. We live in really exciting times. It's a great time to be in this industry.
I have Marvel people that just like, okay, Eric, what do you recommend? Like the Action Comics that's coming out this week, Detective, was great.
Speaking of that, let's talk about this Action Comics.
Yeah.
This is the big book of the week. This is the big deal. This is Grant Morrison redefining a super god, redefining Superman, going back to his roots, going back to when Superman was created. It was kind of Depression era, and he was kind of like the Superman that was the champion of the everyman.
Right.
He was against the fat cats. He was not protecting the status quo. He was trying to enforce the ideals of America, not what had become of it. And from the very first page of this issue, it's that. It's rats with money and rats with guns. I'm your worst nightmare. Heat vision eyes for the whole rest of the thing. That's the first page. No spoiler. He's angry. He's an angry Superman. He's like when Jesus was throwing the money changers at him. I mean, that's what the Superman is. I'm telling you, this Superman, any reason that you have to not like Superman is gone. Just like any reason you might have not to like DC is gone.
Right.
Superman is a badass. Before, yes, Superman had his mom and pa back alive. I mean, first it's probably with the Comics Code kind of weakened everything and made him, the champion of the status quo. Then mom and pa back alive after Crisis, he could just fly back to Kansas and get advice on every single thing he could ever want. And Pa would give him advice, and Ma would bake him pie, and he would be so happy with the world. And then when he married Lois Lane is a badass. Lois Lane is hardcore. So she wore the pants in that relationship. And when they got married, Superman kind of had to carry her purse around. I mean, it was, I know, whatever, Lois Lane has her fans. But I just felt like she kind of emasculated Superman because Superman was like such a Boy Scout. And now he's not married, Mom and Pa are dead, and he's a badass. So Grant Morrison is killing with this book, and if you want to see a super-powered, badass superhero, and he's the first hero in this world. It's like our world. What if Superman showed up in our world?
Right.
Yes, there's still a Batman, but he's an urban myth at this point.
Right.
Training his Robin internship program, which, it sounds a little bit like there's going to be some kind of issues with that in the voice. But anyway, Justice League was 5 years in the past. This is approximately 6 years in the past. It's before that, and I can't say enough about this. I think everyone should try this book this week. The second suggestion I have to everyone, Scott Snyder on Swamp Thing. I personally love Swamp Thing. I've been telling Dan DiDio and Jeff Johns every time I've seen them for years and years to bring back Swamp Thing. Bring it back to the DCU. Green is awesome. Green, environmental issues, all that. It's in vogue. It's so relevant now. And I was saying, make it Swamp Thing regrowth, like rebirth. But Scott Snyder, when I talked to him at San Diego, he said he had this pitch for this epic Swamp Thing when he first came to DC. And it was before Brightest Day. It was before, obviously, the New 52. And DC kind of said, okay, cool. We'll put this on the back burner, and we can get this out. And the art is immaculate in here, and it involves every aspect. There's everyone in the Justice League.
Aquaman,
Superman is highly involved in here, and whenever I see Superman and Swamp Thing together, I think back to that Alan Moore issue where Swamp Thing was cradling him like the Madonna. It was so good, and they were like interlaced fingers. It's like, oh, you guys. But anyway, this Swamp Thing is creepy and awesome, and it's Scott Snyder, and then we have Jeff Lemire on Animal Man, who is also one of my favorite heroes because I'm an old Vertigo kid. When I was in high school, I stopped reading superhero comics. I stopped admitting that I did. I still snuck them. But I was a Vertigo head. I read every Vertigo, and I love these horror heroes. And now with like the horror tinge to our whole culture and our pop culture and everything is just so much into the supernatural and whatnot, I think it's high time for the dark. You know, this is horror heroes. That's a cool
Animal
concept.
Man was really dark and creepy.
Animal Man,
really
to
creepy.
me, if you like Grant Morrison's Animal Man, you'll like this. If you like Jeff Lemire on anything
The
he does,
Sweet Tooth, he did
Superboy,
Superboy.
you'll like it, but he's a family man. He's a Superman who's also a family man. He's more of a family man. And now one of his kids is displaying powers. And to me, it's like The Incredibles, which is family superheroes, meets The Lion King, which is the powers, as a horror movie. Like, what the hell isn't awesome about that? This is just so good. Buddy Baker is such a unique voice in comics, and I love it. I can't, I love it. Maybe it's not for everyone, but it's definitely for the cool kids.
It is very good.
And Stormwatch, Paul Cornell, I loved his Lex Luthor Action Comics. It was a great book with lots of guest stars, lots of zaniness, lots of crazy stuff, unexpected things happening. And Stormwatch, to me, is kind of that book. It's going to have a lot of crazy guest stars. The team's already weird. Marsh Manter's on this team.
A gay Superman and Batman on the team.
And Marsh Manter. So this book is kind of like the counterpoint to the Justice League, that these guys are watching the superpowered people. To me, Stormwatch, in its essence, is the boys of the DCU.
Right.
That's its purpose. And with Marsh Manter on it, that's just, I think he's found his home. I think it's going to be great. And I can guarantee you that Stormwatch is going to come head to head with Justice League before too long, because that's just the way that's the way it's panning out. And I would also bet that Captain Marvel Shazam will probably appear here, because Paul Cornell is dying to write Captain Marvel Shazam and that whole family. Another counterpoint to the Justice League is Justice League International. The United Nations put together this team, and I sure wish it was written by Judd Winnett, because he killed so much with Generation Lost. But it's written by Dan Jurgens, who also wrote Justice League International back in the day after Breakdowns of Gift of DeMatteis left the book. And, he created Booster Gold, and Guy is in the book, and I love Guy. And Guy is like a super mega douche, where if you thought Hal was kind of a douche in Justice League when he was speaking in third person with colons and telling Batman to wait in the Batmobile, it's just, Guy is just, Guy is Guy. He's awesome. He nailed Guy. And, I'm a huge Booster fan. I'm giving Dan Jurgens a chance, and I like that the little lady was changed out. That's cool, And also, this book's kind of neat to put the context of the whole universe, since it's international. You have the whole world of the new DCU, and you get kind of like a splash page, like, oh, Congarilla is still part of this. Oh, Plastic Man, Creeper, they're still, and this is all first page, not spoilers. The Batman universe has 2 books out this week. Well, 2 books we're talking about. Also has Batwing, but Batgirl. Insane. Yes, she's, out of the wheelchair, whatever. But it's very, very much dealing with the fact that she was in the wheelchair. There's full-on flashbacks of Killing Joke in here. And then as she is out patrolling and crime fighting, she's having, big fear, like, get back on the horse type fear of guns, bullets, these issues. And I think it's being done very well, very tactfully, unlike what I would do.
Right.
But anyway, I think that it's really exploring like rehabilitation, physical therapy. Yes, it's wish fulfillment to get out of the wheelchair, but the whole DC universe is wish fulfillment. The whole DC universe is, and Gail Simone is a class act if nothing else, and she writes a great story, and I think Batgirl is going to be
I'm so happy Barbara's back out there.
Yeah, I liked Oracle as much as the next dude, but I kind of agree that she kind of made Batman just a monster hunter. She did all the detective work from, the computers and just dispatched Batman. Right. And Batman's supposed to be the world's greatest detective. So, whatever. If it was anyone but Gail Simone, I'd be a lot more apprehensive about it, but it's Gail Simone. And Killing Joke still happened. They're still dealing with all that. So, awesome. And then Tony Daniel, he's more of an artist than a writer, obviously. His art is freaking beautiful. And, a little wary about it, not having a co-writer, not having whatever, but it's awesome. And it's Joker. And if you want Joker or Batman, the new DCU, which I'm sure almost every Batman fan wants, okay, where's Joker? They're leading with Joker here. So this is your first outing of Batman other than in the Justice League #1. Right. This is the first solo Batman out. And give it a shot. If you have a little bit of another $2.99 to hold the line, get Detective. And that's all the relaunch books that we're talking about. The only other book we're going to talk about could have been a relaunch book. Atomic Robo could have been in the DC Universe, and Brian Clevenger did have a Firestorm book that he was...
Someone say Atomic Robo?
Oh, this is Cappy
That's
from
Cap.
Nerdy Show that he does with Brian Clevenger.
Yeah.
And
I do it with Ryan all the time.
they do it all night
We
long.
do it together.
All right. So what do you want to say about Atomic Robo?
Okay, I've read this issue. I've read the issue that follows it. This is the best thing Brian has ever written, ever. I'm not just talking about 8-bit theater. I'm talking about all of Atomic Robo. Out of all that, this is the best thing he's ever written. So far, everything I've read is outstanding. This issue is, you can jump in at every issue 1. These all take place completely disjointed from each other. You can jump in at this issue. If you've never read Atomic Robo, do it now.